Righto, brand new build in the workshop and it's going to be on this F100. So I'm going to go a little bit racy style with this car. I'll be going a splitter on the front, a little bit of a roof slant in the roof, and then a wing on the back, new tailgate, that sort of thing. So there's going to be a few modifications. I'll be infilling some panels, chopping the chassis rail at the front back a bit so it's on the inside, and then just cleaning it up. So this body is in good condition already. It has had some work done previously on this car, so it is in pretty good condition and doesn't need a lot of rust repair done to it. So that is a good start for this build. And I'm going to be starting off up in the roof in here, which I have already cut. So we'll recap in the video, show a little bit of footage while I was cutting this. And in the front, I've actually cut out 17 mil and dropped the front down. And then in the back, I've actually brought the back up about 10 mil. So the drip rail is going to need a little bit of changing sort of on the body line that comes up through here. It won't have a drip rail, so we're going to go without the drip rails. And then needs a little bit of shaping up in the corners, both sides, and a few sort of modifications. So we're going to be giving it that sort of roof chop slant in the roof, but by doing it just in the skin without changing all the windows and everything. So this is all going to be the same front window, side windows, rear window, but just giving it that slight bit of rake in the roof, which I think will look pretty cool. So all the modifications on this build will be more sort of on the subtle side of stuff, not really exaggerated things, but it will be a little bit kind of racy at the same time. And the owner's going to be dropping in a Ford Godzilla motor, which will fit up at some stage into this thing. So it's going to be a pretty rad little ride. So I like it. I love F100s and I'm keen on this build. So we'll get into it and get some action going. I've gone and made this section here all the way along. So this section, it actually sits about 1.5 mil, 2 mil proud of that door. So when the roof goes on and the water hits it, it doesn't just dump water in there. It's just higher than that. So a lot of people go flush with the top of the door and the water will go in there. So this is slightly further out than the door, just to help with that water flow. And then up and through the back here, there's a seam. So that seam's going to be going. And then I'm going to put the roof back on this. And up in these top corners here, I need to do a little bit of shaping. So I'll put the roof on and then have a look up here. So because this rear's gone up, I have done a little extension piece down in through here. So that's giving that taper look, coming down narrower into the front. So that'll go with that rake. So there was a bit of a gap because obviously this has gone up. So that'll be a nice little taper. And then in the front, you can see these front corners. They don't look any good, they don't flow. So this fold mark here is too far out. So I've got to cut this off, reshape these corners a little bit on both sides, and then have that go with the flow of this. So we'll get rid of that and then do a little bit of shaping in here, put a piece in, and then start shaping up the rear. Front corners are looking way better. Everything's all clecoed up. And then now that line comes along nicely and then transitions nicely in through here. So the corners aren't sticking out too far now. So I reckon the front of that roof's looking great now. So we'll move on over into the back. So this is the back of the roof. I've kind of temporarily propped it up with these just to get a bit of a look at the rake. So as you can see from the side, that roof's got a nice bit of rake to it. So the back of the roof, that's kind of set at about 12 mil at the moment, but we're going to be getting rid of this seam anyway because we want it to be seamless. And because the roof has gone forward, you've got this little bit of a distance here and has dropped at the front. So going to make a blank and have this come up and flow around here up into the top of the roof. So we'll make a section up in through the middle and then do these corners through here. So we'll get a bit of a blank made and get that done. So I ended up doing a flexible shape pattern. I was going to do a paper pattern, but I lost my magnets. I think they might have been stuck on the side of a job when that went, so I didn't have enough magnets to fully go in through there, so I'm gonna have to get some more. But did a little flexible shape pattern so I could get something to cut out this blank. So I've cut the blank and added a bit of shape to it this way. But as you can see, when you put that on, that needs a fair bit of shape put in it that way. So it's rocking, so I'll chuck it in the wheel, might even put it in the little hammer and do a few shrinks up in the top as that comes around into the roof. But I'll start adding some shape into that and we'll get this little filler panel in here fitting and made up to this roof here. The back panel's in, shaped up and clecoed in, and then that just fills in that area. And then on the sides actually fit pretty flush. And then I'm just going to do a bit of a smaller bit through here and then open that template up down into this area. So this is pretty much a little fill-in panel, and then it's still got a bit of transition down in this corner. So I'll do this pattern and then shape up this section, put that on and see how it's looking, and then just put some lines in here on the edges too. The roof's back in place, pretty much ready to weld up now. So I've clecoed everything in, front corners are done, so that flow coming out of the pillar up into the front is looking nice. And then I've welded in the piece that sits underneath the roof in here both sides, and I have copper coated that. So copper coat spray paint, another brand I use is U-Pole, and it's pretty much the best protection that you are going to get if you're going to be welding in areas. If you use another paint, that paint's going to burn away, but the copper coat will stay there. So for a welded zone, it's the best protection that you can have. So the inner of the roof and underneath has all been copper coated. And in the rear, I've made that rear panel in the center section, and then I've made those rear cab corners as well up in here. So I'm going to tack everything in, get everything tacked, and then get that the rear section of the cab, get that tacked in and welded in first, and then I'll move into doing the corners. And I've shaped the rear cab corners mainly on the power hammer, and I've shaped those corners and done the return this way. But after I've tacked everything in, then I will fine tune the return that comes back this way and make sure that that line through here is looking nice and equal, so everything flows with the shape that's going on in the roof. So you want flow, and I want that flow nicely in here, so when I return that, it'll look good. So pretty much ready to weld this thing in now. So we'll move in and start welding it up, because this thing's looking pretty good now. Brand new Godzilla motor getting dropped off now. How good does that look? This is going to look nice in the F100 and go hard. Gearbox to match. I'm going to go ahead and radius these corners up the top and radius it down in here as well. But for this body line, which kind of has a little bit of a raise, I don't think it's going to look good with the way that this is shaped in around here. So I'm going to continue that body line around with this radius. I'm going to continue that body line up and blend it up into the roof. And then that shape will match nicely with the shape that's going on in here, and keeping that body line there just won't look right. So we're going to change that body line and do something up in the corners in here, and then that way you've kind of got a body line that goes all the way around. So we'll get into it and make this section. I cut out the curve to the door to what I wanted, so then I could lay the paper on there and do the template. So this is up into the pillar, and then this is the return flange that gaps it around the door. So I've gone ahead, put a little bit of shape in here and turned that flange, and then now I've got to add that detail that goes in here. And I am going to be fading it away up into the top to blend into the roof. And I could make a tool for the hammer, but because it will fade away, I'm just going to do it by hand. So I'm going to mark out how far in I want to go, and then just start hammering this around and add that little detail in, just using different shaped dollies and doing it by hand. So I'll add that little detail in and see how it looks. So this is how the new panel is up in the front corners, and then that body line now cranks around with the curvature of that door and then fades away up into the body line up through the top. So that's how that's looking. We will get into the rest. And for the keyboard warriors, this windscreen is already broken up on the other side. So I know some people will say, hey, that windscreen's in, it's broken anyway. So that's why it's still in there. Otherwise, take your windscreen out. But that's how that's looking up in through here. And then we'll just carry on with the rest of it and then carry on with the rest of the build. All the modifications are done up here on the roof, everything's welded in. All the doors have been curved. I'm going to do a little bit of lead work in a few areas because there was no dolly access in behind. So I will do a little bit extra to this, and it's got that nice little subtle rake already. So all the modifications that will be done throughout this build will be nice little subtle modifications. And all the rear's done, gutter rails are chopped off, everything's welded up, front, sides, rear. It's all in place. I will be cutting the firewall out of this, and my friend Lee at Pro Street Development, he has been down here test fitting the motor and doing a little bit, so he'll be making some motor mounts and doing a few modifications up here, and it's going to have a supercharger on top. So this firewall's got to go, it's going to hit, and we're not going to have enough clearance. So I'll be cutting that out, doing something new, and we'll keep going on this build. I hope you guys have enjoyed this episode. I'll catch you on the next one.